Brace yourself, folks. This isn't your typical Dragon Ball Z story. This gets pretty bonkers. Hey folks, MasakoX here. A while ago, we set about on the journey of seeing what might have happened had Goku landed in a different place, as opposed to his original location, Mount Paozu. It turns out that this isn't exactly a hard or impossible thing to have occurred actually. Anything could have changed the duration and direction that the Saiyan pod took to get to Earth, and because of that, it would have altered the crash site of said pod. Grandpa Gohan here had less to do with Goku, now named Boxer, and his development, but he wasn't entirely absent from his vision in life. Instead, the young one landed at Capsule Corp and became the younger stepbrother to Bulma. From there, we saw him encountering an adventure not too dissimilar from the original, but this time around though, the Red Ribbon Army were far more determined and invested in stopping Boxer, given his ties to Capsule Corp. However, we have finally gotten to the end of the classic Dragon Ball series, but let's have a little reminder of where we are in the story at the moment. In the last part, we had the beginnings of Boxer's training with Kami unfold, and despite his friend's courage and determination, Mark, our Hercule in the story, didn't get the opportunity to train with Kami, the deity seeing him as not worthy and a rather irritable soul. Despite this though, Mark wasn't too bothered. Instead, Mark was in charge of looking after the young Piccolo Jr. That's right, in this timeline, the group found the egg and chose to raise the son of King Piccolo themselves, trying to dispel any evil intent. And it turns out that this was a good thing, and despite his personality being very cantankerous, similar to Ma Jr.'s, the young Namekian this time wasn't a bad guy, just a rather cantankerous anti-hero who aided them in stopping Piano, the former assistant to the king, from getting him back and avenging his father. Piccolo Jr. still leaves for pastures new though, but not before giving Mark and Miguel his thanks for taking care of him. Will he come back? It's hard to say, but one thing is for sure, we're going to have a very fun and wild ride here with all of the stuff that we laid down in the previous part. Let's get into Z then. A few years have passed since the day that Boxer defeated Junior at the World Martial Arts Tournament, and sure enough, Junior had not been seen since, keeping his word about himself trying to discover a new form of training and power. Mark though was sad that he hadn't so much as heard from his son, but he knew that he could take care of himself ultimately. After all, he was the second strongest guy he knew. As for everybody else, a lot has happened during such a long period of time. It had actually been quite a mellow stint for everyone. No sign of anything nefarious crossing their paths. And Boxer had to admit that after all the things that he had seen in his lifetime, especially in the last few years, it was actually pretty good to have a break from stuff threatening the Earth and instead focusing on normality, the routine, regular training on his terms. Most notably, Boxer and Chi-Chi got to know each other more and eventually got married, resulting in their firstborn son, Lon Jon. Not Gohan? Well, I mean, why would he call his son Gohan in the story, given that the old sage wasn't as much of a figure as he was in the original story? Nope, we're getting somebody with a name much more suited to the Capsule Corp heritage, Lon Jon. After Long Johns, obviously. Unlike the original, however, neither Boxer and Chi-Chi choose to live in the countryside, or even Mount Paozu. They were living currently in West City, not too far from Boxer's home of Capsule Corp HQ. Boxer also had a good job, instead of just being a martial artist. This is where Boxer had decided to set up his own car repair shop. He was pretty good at this too, choosing to rely on mostly his own assets and skills, instead of relying on handouts or pay deals from his adoptive father and company. But despite this though, the natural attachment to Capsule Corp and his name meant that his workshop did get a lot of traffic anyway. Chi-Chi meanwhile wasn't just your average housewife. She had a job as well, where she worked as a private tutor for children in the neighbourhood. Granted, she wasn't the favourite of most children given her stern and determined manner towards study and getting a good education, but kids later thanked her for giving them a good work ethic when they grew up. And naturally, of course, the parents really liked her and found her very reasonable price-wise too, given how good she was. Naturally, unlike the original as well, both Boxer and Chi-Chi retained a friendly relationship with the other Z fighters, including Krillin. No 5-year disappearance or anything like that. They would regularly, in fact, get together and hang out. Krillin hadn't really been up to anything new. He was still training with Roshi and Gohan on the occasion, firing Kamehamehas into the ocean over and over just like he loved to do. And of course, little Lon Jon's best friend was Mark and Miguel's daughter, Videl. That part hadn't changed. She was stillborn, except for the fact that Miguel survived the rigors of childbirth, meaning that Mark didn't have to go it alone. And while Miguel's musical career was pretty stable and provided for the whole family, Mark felt like, though, he should start to pull more of his own weight too. He wanted to prove himself more than ever and find a more standard job than just relying on the occasional martial arts gig. He tried various types of jobs to try and find himself, starting with Launch's bodyguard agency, like we mentioned in a previous part. That seemed like a natural fit, and Launch was keen to get him on board, with her knowing exactly what he was capable of. He was one of the strongest guys she knew, and on the planet, so therefore, that would attract big clients, maybe even some diplomats. Ooh, money, money. With that odd jaunt, Mark would also try and go through bodybuilding contests and martial arts classes with some groups. But he didn't feel quite good in any of those roles. Sure, he had the skill, so he had the talk, but he didn't really feel comfortable teaching people or putting himself on show. He lacked the self-belief and showmanship that his regular timeline self had in spades. But hey, it's not like he was miserable or anything. He was happy with a loving family that supported him, and whatever he tried to do, he would certainly figure something out, right? Well, it would just take time is all. Meanwhile, Piccolo had been busy, unbeknownst to the rest of the Dragon team, and he preferred it that way. It made things much less complicated. He had been travelling on a journey of self-discovery, with Piano naturally stalking the youngling throughout. Him following in his footsteps in the attempt to try and convince him to rise to the occasion of why he existed and becoming the true heir to King Piccolo's legacy. Piano, though, was never successful, but he carried on persisting since he had nothing else going for him. Junior was slightly irritated by this. He knew he wasn't interested in becoming King Piccolo II, not one bit. But even though this little pterodactyl got under his skin, he never decided to use any violent resorts in order to get rid of this older sibling. It wasn't worth it, nor would it be wise. He was not brought up that way. He simply didn't want to be bothered with such matters, and instead do things his way, and instead do things his own way. But Piano was relentless. Almost every other day, Piano would spout out words along the lines of, "You allowed yourself to fraternize with the enemy," and "Find it within yourself." Oh, and then there was, of course, "Your true mission, the essence of thy father." That is until Raditz shows up. On October the 12th of age 761, Raditz had crash-landed on Earth, and the era of Z formally began. He would then go on to naturally down a certain farmer, and then proceed to interrupt a warm family Z fighter gathering, where he drops the bombshell about being Boxer's brother. But as we know, that this isn't as big of a surprise as it was in the original, with Boxer already aware that he was an alien that had found himself on Earth. Although shocked, understandably, he had found his older brother. The Saiyan is unwilling to follow his brother and join him in the mad conquest. From first glance though, he could tell this brother was bad news, and therefore had no interest in getting to know him, joining him for anything that he had to offer. Raditz would then decide to go for Lon Jon, Boxer's son, which prompts Boxer, Mark, Krillin, Launch and Tenshinhan to try and stop him in one swift attack, unlike Goku's lone push in the original. But Raditz easily deals with all of them. None of them could so much as leave a scratch on him. After that little flash of protest, Raditz takes the child, much to the horror of everyone involved. Not only was Lon Jon gone, nobody could reasonably defend him and themselves from this madman. Boxer, Mark and Krillin decide to give chase, and in a quite unexpected manner, they find themselves reacquainting themselves with somebody that they thought they would never see again. They met with Piccolo, who had felt Raditz's energy just now. Mark is so happy to see Piccolo alive and well, and impressed to feel that he had gotten stronger in this time. Piccolo gave his guardian a smile, but it was fleeting. Instead, he was more focused on the danger that Raditz posed to everyone on the planet. He allies with them against the invader. No agendas here. Meanwhile, Boxer contacts his sisters asking for backup, asking whether they had any tools or intel about what Raditz was and where they had taken their relative. While Long John doesn't have his Dragonball hat, with the help of Junior, they manage to locate them just in time. Mark is so proud of his boy right now. They know that Raditz doesn't really intend to kill his nephew either. That would be too barbaric for him, right? He had no plan to do so. Yeah? Surely he was merely trying to use the kid as leverage, to get Boxer to join him. The four warriors then tried to take Raditz on once more, now starting to give him a little bit of trouble with the addition of Piccolo, but still not enough to actually beat him. It does, though, pique the Saiyans' interest. Raditz is impressed by their showcase of power, almost enough to not kill them there and then, wanting to know more. It had been a big long while since anyone had shown him that level of defiance. It feels refreshing. But no amount of bravado would be enough to stop him from getting Boxer to come with him, and he still manages to take Piccolo's arm and hurt Boxer pretty badly. Unfortunately here, Long John doesn't have his rage boost like in the original, as his upbringing was much more stable than Gohan's. The poor kid is scared witless inside the pod, trying to claw his way out of it. He has no means of getting out, powering up, or showing any signs of his half-Saiyan potential at the moment. He is helpless. But then, help comes from an unexpected item. "Hold it right there, you scoundrel!" Raditz heard a somewhat annoying voice in the distance. He turned to see a galactic patroller, a rather familiar one. Raditz groaned. "Oh great, those guys. You are about to be taken down by a super elite." Bulma and Tights had really excelled themselves this time, calling in the cavalry. Jaco was here, and he meant business. Him feeling quite endeared to the group now, and had long since gotten over his mistrust over Boxer. It had been obvious that this kid was a good soul, and he had made the right choice in letting him stay on Earth. He patted himself on the back very regularly. Almost every day, in fact. Our heroes were in luck that Jaco had also been close enough to get there in time before anyone had gotten seriously hurt. In this story, inspired by his nephew, Uncle Jaco decided to train a little bit more and be a little less blusterous, less of an imbecile. "Well, well, if it isn't the Galactic Patrol interfering with things they should not touch upon. Look out, little copper. You can get hurt. Have none of you learnt your lessons before now? Do not mess with us and the Frieza Force!" "Frieza Force? What?" said Boxer with confusion. "But I thought you said you were Saiyans." But before Boxer could get an adequate reply, Jaco stepped forward and fired a warning shot at Raditz's direction. Jaco is not intimidated and goes for Raditz, to everyone's surprise. In fact, he manages to go toe-to-toe with him. He and the Saiyan are equals. What? Nobody's more astounded about this than Raditz himself, who had never encountered an officer at this level of performance. Usually these guys were pen pushers and blowhards who relied on their pistols too much. Mark is super impressed by this. Jaco is so cool right now. How far he had come. Long John also forgets for a moment that he is imprisoned and watches on in awe at the superheroic antics of Uncle Jaco. He felt safe now, and that he would be out of this weird ship in no time. Piccolo and Boxer then gather their strength and manage to knock Raditz out cold, after which Jaco restrains him. And then he brushes his hands and looks extremely pleased with himself. "See, Boxer? That's why I was worried about you from the very beginning. I wasn't trying to be mean toward you. This is how nasty Saiyans can be. I'm glad I was wrong about you, though. Luckily, you haven't become such a ruffian as this one. Now that's over. Are you gonna take him to prison?" Boxer asks. "He will be taken to Galactic Patrol Prison. We have a special section for people like these. You won't be getting out anytime soon, I can tell you that. We patrollers always love begging Saiyans. No offense." Boxer brushes this aside, glad that this was all over. So, victory, right? Nobody died? Raditz is arrested? Well, not exactly. While everyone was celebrating and freeing Long John, a mysterious, one-eyed older man just suddenly appeared out of nowhere, confusing everybody. Before Boxer could ask him about his intentions, this guy sniped Boxer through the chest, much to everyone's shock. Mark then goes for this stranger in a fit of rage and shock, but is easily pushed away. Before anyone realizes what had happened, the man then speaks to the group, like nothing had happened.
Relax, I did you a favor. You can wish him back with the Dragon Balls. They can grant any wish after all. And by the way, the scouter on that guy's head is transmitting.
The old man snipes Raditz's scouter with a ki blast, without actually killing Raditz.
I wouldn't try to attack me either. None of you have enough power to do so. I would instead focus on those other Saiyans that are gonna come here in 1 year's time, if I were you.
Our heroes just don't understand. Why did he kill Boxer? Why is he so strong? Why is Boxer's body vanishing? Why is he then telling them all this and... Wait, more Saiyans?
Get ready, and do yourself a favor and train the kid in there. He's severely lacking in the power department.
Krillin and Mark try to ki blast the older guy, but he just vanishes. Everyone is shaken. More Saiyans? More powerful than this one? How are they going to tell Chi-Chi about this? Piccolo then looked to the sky.
I guess Kami has some plans regarding the Boxer. I don't know who this guy was or why he did it, but we don't have much time or options.
Mark looked at Long John, confused by the loss of his father, and eyed Jaco and Piccolo.
We need to help Chi-Chi take care of the little guy until Boxer's back. We owe him that.
And as such, the fighters of Earth started to train, with Long John becoming a pupil of Mark, Jaco, and Piccolo. Meanwhile, the confused Boxer is set on his path down the infamous Snake Way, with Kami greatly distressed about the mysterious old man, and them having made this victory over Saiyan extremely bittersweet. If he killed Boxer with that much ease, why is he not going to deal with the Saiyans himself? But still, he's going to make sure that Boxer will make everything he can out of this opportunity. After all, this will allow his former pupil to train with King Kai. He wondered if this was the mysterious stranger's intention all along. But no, couldn't have been. He would have no way of knowing about King Kai. Right? And that's where we're going to be leaving things for right now. So what do you folks think? Who is the mysterious sniper? Does he have ties to the Dragon Team? Or does he have his own sick agenda to his own ends? Leave a comment below and let's get this discussion going. And I will see you in the next video. Catch you later!